Hi, I'm Sally Santen at VCU Department of Emergency Medicine. Today I'm going to talk about 10 tips to turn your education into scholarship. All of you are teachers in some sense and form, but many of us actually spend a lot of time in our education domain, and it's important for us to have scholarship and dissemination of our work across our time. So I want you, as I do this, for you to think about various educational things that you're working on. Probably the most important thing is to be intentional about making your education rigorous and robust so that you can turn it into scholarship. It means looking for questions as you work through the things that you're doing so that you can think about dissemination. One of the things we did recently was, I'm sure all of you are actually doing Twitter in your emergency departments out of your conferences. Well, we actually decided to do Twitter, probably delayed compared to everybody else, but we recognized that it actually hadn't been published in the education literature. And so Mary Haas took the outcomes from our Twitter project and published it as a short piece in medical education. It is to say that as you're working through your educational work, be curious, ask questions, figure out where the gaps are. Last year, we did a session on evidence-based teaching here at SAEM, and one of the articles we did was about task switching or multitasking. We recognized that EM physicians actually don't know much about it, neither did we. And so we did a lit review and published a paper on the limitations of task switching in emergency medicine. It's just being aware of the things that are out there so that you might be able to publish some of these topics. Also, when you think about your work, make sure that you're setting clear outcomes of every educational intervention that you try to do. Be careful to measure the outcomes and ensure that the outcomes are associated with the objectives that you have so that you can frame good questions related to the educational work that you're doing. We all do a lot of work in education, but a lot of it is not actually recognized or disseminatable. And so these are the tips to try to make it happen. For example, a lot of us do simulation. It's nearly impossible to publish in simulation these days because there's so much published out there already. So a good tip is to actually take standard practice, such as debriefing and simulation, and overlay goal-oriented to that. And so this was a study that basically looked to say, did that help? Tip number 4, use your teams. I've got some of the best educational teams, I think, in the world, but it helps us do better work, to ask better questions, and to actually get the work done, as well as work on multiple projects at the same time. Tip number 5, get an educational consult. I'm always looking for some help on stuff, and so I call a group of people to help me answer questions to make my work better. And so get an educational consult as you think about trying to make your work better. And in this process, you're going to build your educational skills, whether or not you're learning how to do a survey for the first time, do a qualitative research, answer a good question, quantitative. Just keep working on building your skills so that you can get better and better in education. Probably the most important thing is the barriers. We all have these barriers. Some of them are external, called the IRB or money, but many of them are internal. And it's the, what stops you from actually making something meaningful or trying to disseminate it in some way. It may be that you don't really have a good question. It could be that you say that you don't feel like you have enough time. It may also be that you have difficulty writing. Think about those barriers and try to remove them. Set time aside to write. Have somebody else help you write. And then the other thing is to be very organized in the work that you do. I recommend using a scholarship pipeline. This is what mine looks like, although it's empty at this point. I mean, this one is empty. Mine is not empty. And it's essentially, it's a way of kind of organizing the work that you're doing. We all like to start new projects, but nobody actually likes to finish and write them. And so try using an educational pipeline. And what it does is it lets you recognize what's coming into the pipeline so that you don't let anything in before something comes out. It includes things as like, have I done the IRB? What's the development of it? Where's the data analysis? Where's the gathering? And then making sure you keep to your deadlines. Tip 9, have a nudge. Years ago, my chair said to me, Sally, what's your job description as Associate Chair for Education? I said, Chief Nudge. Have a nudge and invite them to do that. Make that their responsibility. Final tip, expand your personal learning network. There's a ton of people in this room and at this meeting. You're better off working with other people outside of your own little group. Currently in medical education, it is hard to publish single institution projects, and it's much better to be doing it at multiple institutions. And so create and use a learning network to try to improve your group, your team, and your research in the way. Keeping in mind that the distant ones are actually the strongest ones. So the people who are furthest are going to get you the most movement in your personal learning network. 10 tips, deliberate practice, be curious, do good stuff, work in teams, get an educational concept, build your skills, manage your barriers, use a scholarship pipeline, have a nudge, and use a personal learning network.
right?